Welcome to Module 5. In this module, we'll be looking at Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator. We'll be looking at the interface, we'll be looking at the tools, and how to work with them as graphic designers. You simply go to adobe.com, you create a Creative Cloud account, choose a subscription, and get the software Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator for our next class. Let's dive into Adobe Photoshop. So once you get the software, you first of all have to install it into your computer, and then you open it. Once you open it, you see a dashboard that looks like this. And this is very simple. We have our home, we have a section here where you can simply go to learn a little bit of things from Photoshop, get to know layers, get to know the app, etc. And here you have your file management options. You have your files, you have files that have been shared with you. You have your deleted files as well. Let's go back to our home, and then we can create a new file or open. If you already have a file that you were working on before, once you come into Photoshop, you see your recent files here, but then you can also just click on open. And what this is going to do is open the dialog box. You can select the file in your computer and click on open. Let's cancel this. We'll be creating from scratch. So let's click on new file. And then once you do that, you see this dialog box, right? First thing you see here are templates. Now, these are size templates. So we can go into, and these are the recent one used. Now, these are size templates. Here we have our recently used. We can go into the photo tab to see different sizes. Let's click on view all presets. You see different sizes. Let's go into print as well. We'll see different sizes. You can click on view all presets. We can go into web. And again, you see different sizes. You can click on view all presets. Let's go back to our recent and click on default Photoshop size. Now let's go to our right. And the first thing you see here is preset details. Under here, you can add a name to your document. So let's say this is Photoshop interface. Now, remember in Canva, we had the option to create a custom size document, and we're able to add the height and the width. So we have the same option here. And just like Canva as well, we have the option to use pixels, to use inches, to use centimeters, millimeters, points, and extra here we have picas. So let's select pixels. And here we can select the pixel size that we want. We can select the width, and we can select the height as well. So let's do 1080 by 1080. We can select our orientation as well, either portraits or landscape. Let's stick with portraits. If you select artboards, you'll be able to create multiple canvases within that one document. I'll show you that very soon. Our resolution, we have pixels per inch, PPI, or pixels per centimeters, PPC. Let's use pixels per inch at 300 resolution. Now we have different color modes, but we'll be focusing on two. If you click in here, you see the different color modes. We have RGB color and we have CMYK color. Now RGB stands for red, green, blue. And this is a color mode used for screens. So when you're creating screen designs that will be used on phones, on TV screens, on desktop screens, on laptop screens, we use RGB. And when you're creating for print, we use CMYK. So CMYK is cyan, magenta, yellow, and key. Key is black. So we use this color mode for print. Now, since we're creating for our screen, let's just leave it at RGB color. Let's focus on the other options that we need to. Here you can select your background. You can make it black. You can make it transparent. And you can choose a custom color as well. We'll stick with white for this demonstration. Leave these ones as is, and we can click on create. Now, Photoshop is going to open your editing dashboard. Now, it might look complicated on first visit, but we'll break that down as we go. So let's start right at the top here. We have our menu bar, and here's where you see information about. So we have file, we have our edit, image, layer, type, select, filter, view, plugins, window, and help. We have our options bar, and that's right beneath the menu bar. You can see that here. And depending on what you're working with text, working with shapes, working with images, this will change to suit that element you're working with. Remember, we had the same thing in Canva, where if you select a text, you have specific options. When you select a shape, you have specific options. And when you select an image, you have specific options as well. So after our options bar, we have our documents bar. Now here, we can have different documents. So let me show you an example. We'll click into File and click into New. So let's say we want to create another document. And let's use different sizes for this. Let's name this Doc 2. We'll leave all the other options as is and click on Create. Now, you can see our Doc 2 over here. We have our Photoshop interface, we can switch. We have our Doc 2, and we can create more documents. For example, let's do Doc 3. Doc 3. And click on Create. We're leaving our options as is. Click on Create. And here again, you can see we have our Photoshop interface. We have our Doc 2, and we have our Doc 3. So this is your documents bar. Let's remove these. And now we have our toolbar to the left. Now, there's so many tools here. And if we click in here, edit toolbar, you see that we have even more tools down here. Now, we'll be focusing on them as we need so that you can easily understand them and you do not get overwhelmed. So let's just click on Done and go back. So here we have our toolbar, we have our move tool. And what this essentially does is, let me just bring in a shape to demonstrate that. Now, what our move tool essentially does is it gives us the option to move elements around, right? So you can click in and move your elements around. Again, click in and move your elements around. So now, the shortcut for using our move tool is V. So instead of having to go here every time you want to pick the move tool, you can just click on V on your keyboard and it switches back to the move tool. So, like I said, we'll be focusing on the tools as we need. So after our move tool, let's talk about our hand tool. Our hand tool is at the bottom here. If you click on hand tool moves your canvas, the whole canvas. Remember, we're using our move tool to move elements within our canvas. If we wanted to move our canvas, we would use our hand tool, as you can see, to move the canvas around. And here's where this is useful, which leads us to the next tool, our zoom tool. So you can click and zoom into your design further, or click and drag to zoom back out, right? So here's where the hand tool might be useful. So let's pull this in, let's drag, let's zoom in again. And let's say you have different elements on your page that you want to look at. How do you do that when you have zoomed in this close? You simply just move to your hand tool, click your hand tool, and you can come here and move your canvas around. So you can see different sections here. As you can see, you can move it around. So imagine you had other elements beneath the rectangle. You can move it around as so. So now we've covered our move tool. We've covered our hand tool, and we've covered our zoom tool. In the next video, we'll learn how to bring in text into Photoshop. We've learned how to do that with Canva. So how do we do that in Photoshop? We'll talk about that in the next video. See you there.